And we're off. Welcome, everyone. Very excited to have everyone here today for our compiler webinar. So as everyone's coming in, please jump in the chat. I'd love to hear from you, how you're doing. Let me know. Make sure that you switch your chat to everyone and not just hosts and panelists so everyone can feel and hear your goodness. Excuse me while I take a drink. As usual, you know me, I'm usually sick with something. I got some sort of like just congestion thing from my kids, I guess. We had them home for spring break, which was actually really quite lovely. It's nice to have the kids home. Sometimes it can be stressful, but actually we had a really great week. How is everyone else doing? I don't know what you all had going on in the world. I mean, it's nice and warm here in Texas, so we had, like I said, we had a great spring break. Oh, thank you, John. Appreciate it. Yeah. Updated the background. I think it's looking pretty good. Yeah. Put a little work into that. So thank you. Appreciate that. Feel free to jump in there. I love to hear from you guys and see how you're doing. Excuse me. Also, I'd love to hear about how you guys feel about the compiler. I know this is a touchy subject for some people. Some people absolutely love the compiler, and other people are like, I don't know about this tool. So it's tough. So let me know. You know, maybe on a scale to 1 to 5, you feel like let's do 1 to 10. 1 being I'm not very good with the compiler, and 10 being like I'm rocking the compiler. I know exactly what I'm doing. Where do you find yourself in that spectrum? Everyone says a 3. John says, just use it to print out meeting notes. Nice feature. Okay. Michelle 7. Marilyn 1. Ted 3. Lucy -1. Nice. Okay. No, I feel you. Lucy. I get it. Yeah, the compiler can be overwhelming. It is a very robust and powerful tool. It can do a lot. But I can understand why some people just want to avoid it, because it almost is, in my opinion, it's kind of an app within an app. It's a you can actually go through a lot of Scrivener without using the compiler at all. And so it's pretty incredible that we have this massive tool in here that allows you to really kind of change the formatting and get things just how you want them to be, to your level of customization. And I might add that a lot of people do just export it right out of Scrivener and do the formatting in Word, which is actually, honestly, totally okay too. Just depends on the result you want to get and the output, what you're trying to actually export and share with people. So I'm excited about that. Oh, it's good to see a lot of people here today. Good to see some familiar names. John, good to see you. Kitty again. Stefan, Edwin. Good to see you all again. And anyone who's new here, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know if this is your first time, 5th time, 100th time. I don't care where you're at. I'm just happy you're here. So let me know. And if you're new to Scrivener, okay, especially if you're new to Scrivener, I want to know that too. I want to know how many newbies we have here. If you're feeling kind of, I want to know where you're at. If we have a really good advanced group, then great. I want to make sure I can tailor things to our more advanced audience. But if we have a lot of beginners here, I want to make sure we kind of find that good balance here. So just let me know where you're at. So let's see here. I'm going to look through some of the notes here. Brenda says, I find the compiler so confusing. It's hit and miss if I can get work as I want. And I get that, yeah. And so we're going to go through the 4 tools today that make up the compiler. We're going to look at those in depth, each of them one at a time. Then I'm actually going to take an actual project of mine, and we're going to go through, import it into Scrivener, compile it out, and kind of do that testing, kind of see that process of what it takes to get a good compiled manuscript out of Scrivener. And so we'll look at that today. I'm really excited about that. It's gonna be a lot of fun to do that with you. So Matilda says, I'm a 4 with drafts and a 1 with real book stuff. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yep. And so I totally get that. Yep. Chantel says, I've never used it. Okay, that's great. That's a good place to be. We're going to cover straight from the beginning here, the core tools there. So that's perfect place to be, Chantel. Opal says a 5. Cheryl says, I want to be good with the compiler, but I'm not sure how to format things properly and never get it completely right. And to some degree, that's okay. I want to put on that there that, if you get it like 99% right, and then like there's just a few things that aren't coming together, believe it or not, that's happened to me where I've got everything I wanted to, and there's just this one thing I can't, it's just not working for me. I usually will just at that point just fix it in Word, because at that point it's not To me, it's not worth the extra effort to figure that one tiny problem out. If it's like giving me problems again and again and again, and I just can't figure it out. It's totally okay to take it into Word or somewhere, or something else, and say, okay, I'm going to get this out to where it needs to go. So done is better than perfect, in my opinion. So we'll look at that. We'll see if we can figure it out. The beauty of the compiler is that we can kind of do whatever formatting we want in Scrivener, even structure-wise too. And then we can the compiler helps us take what we've done in Scrivener and then change the formatting to something, to what other people may want it to be, right? Or other requirements may be needed, right? And then, but also still allows us to work in what we like to work in, whatever formatting and style we like to work in. And it also lets us, helps Scrivener know exactly what structure we're using. We can kind of inform Scrivener and teach it how we want to do it. So we'll look at that today. I am looking forward to that a lot. Okay, let's see here. What else we got? So Chantel says you're new to Scrivener. Okay, this is a great place to be. If you're new to Scrivener, happy to have you. Don't take it at a beat at a time. This is something typically for new Scrivener users. I'm like, this is good stuff to know. Okay, but if you're writing your novel and doing those kind of things, just bear in mind that you may not have to use much of this unless you're going to share it with someone right now, right? This is stuff that we're going to show how to export something out of Scrivener. So once we've got it in, how do we get it out? How do we share it with other people? That's kind of the whole point of the compiler. But this is really good information to have. It's good for everyone to know how to do. It's going to be really excellent for you there, Chantel. Matt says, I just signed on, not new to Scrivener, but I need new to the tutorials, which I need. Perfect. Great. Well, we have tons of great tutorials out there, tons of events and a whole library of events and webinars we've done. So we'll make sure we get those to you at the end here. So I'm going to say, Rachama said, I had a frustrating experience, but I was finally able to figure out my chapters and had it to be directly in line to be picked up by the compiler. Yep. Okay. Let's see here. Instructions didn't mention how to prep for compile. Okay, yeah. So we're going to look at that from the beginning. Hopefully by today, everyone should have a really good idea of what the compiler is, how to use it properly, and so that way you don't run into those kind of issues again. Yeah. Okay, John, welcome. Good to have you here, John Capron. Zoom, you're a newbie from Zoom user, newbie from Alaska. Welcome, happy to have you here. Just so you know, Zoom user, you're set to host and panelists. So if you'd like your comments to be seen by everyone, make sure you change your chat there to everyone. So I try to notate that when I see you guys sending direct messages just to me. Andrea says you're advanced, but I'd like to know more since I'm largely self-taught. Yep, no, I get that. Beth, formatting for either short stories or novels is difficult. I like to see the indented paragraphs and no extra spaces between them, double space when exporting. Okay, so that's something we could definitely, we might have to make some extra time for, because let's see. Yeah, the indenting paragraphs, extra spaces between them. There are some tools specifically that can handle a lot of that, the indenting and things like that. And extra spacing and things like that, So we'll look at that if we have some time. Andrea says, hello from Germany, by the way. Welcome, Andres. I'm happy to have you here from Germany. And Beth, Esther, Eric from France, Beth, and from both in Indiana. That's great. And excellent. We got a nice, good group here. So I'm excited to have you all here. Now we're going to start here. Oh man, we're already about 10 minutes after. We've had a lot of great comments here. Let me just read these last couple ones here and we'll see where we're going. So Eva says, I compile with standard settings to do all the formatting in Word, but I want to learn. Good thing to spend a whole webinar on this subject. I really want to learn. Okay, that's good. And, I totally get that. It's very common, in fact, for even me sometimes to use Word for formatting. I want to say this right now. I'm not a big fan of Word for drafting, but Word is actually pretty excellent at formatting stuff. That's totally okay. And so if for any reason you're struggling getting the exact thing you want in the compiler, that's okay. I want you to know that that's perfectly okay. But we are going to try to go through these core tools, really get a good feeling for it, so you have a good basic, a good foundation to build off of, so that when you go through, you can use the compiler with confidence and know what the tools do and how to kind of modify them to meet your needs. Okay, perfect. Okay, well, I think we're good to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and we're going to get going. This is going to be an excellent webinar, so stay tuned, guys. I'll try to keep the chat up as best I can. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is I do have Jen here. She is our technical support specialist, and she's going to be handling all of your questions in the Q&A today. So if you could do her a huge favor, please, please, please put your questions in the Q&A for her so she can see those and answer those as we go throughout the presentation. Like I said, it's harder to find those in the chat, especially when we have quite a few people here. So thank you, Jen. She just posted that link for you as well for the webinar library. You can access that as well. And yeah, so there you go. Perfect. I'm going to close that out. We're going to get our webinar started, and here we go. I'm going to move that out of the way. Okay. And at any point, if you guys can't see anything, let me know. So today we're going to talk about the 4 fundamental tools of Scrivener's compiler, how beginners can effortlessly export an outstanding manuscript in Scrivener. And I'm really, like I said, I know I've said it a bunch of times, I am really excited about this topic because it's one that we often don't cover enough. I think I've only done 2 other webinars in the last 2 years on this topic, which is really unfortunate. I want to cover it more because I know there's a lot of questions on it. So let's dive right in and let's talk about the schedule, what we're going to be doing today. First off, we're going to start with a short introduction about who I am and like what we do and why we're doing it, right? We'll move on to our training. That should last about 45 to 60 minutes, okay? Then we're going to look at some free resources I have available for you. And last but not least, our upcoming events for the rest of this week and a short Q&A at the end. So stay tuned. If you have questions specifically for me, things you'd like me to test out live in the webinar, hold those to the end and I'll get those for you. Okay, so here we go. So for those of you who don't know who I am Oliver Evanson, and I am a writer, editor, and Scrivener mentor, largely thanks to this amazing software. I've been using it for the better part of 15 years to improve my own writing and editing skills, and I'm really eager to teach you these skills in my position as the outreach specialist for Literature and Latte, the creators of Scrivener and Scalpel. Now, I absolutely love connecting with other like-minded writers. So if you'd like to connect with me, send me an email. I'd love to get emails from you guys and let me know what you need, what you want, what you're looking for. Feel free to join my email list. I'm happy to have you on there. I frequently send out valuable tips and techniques to help you become a better writer. And all my subscribers receive a free copy of my starter novel template, which is only getting better and better thanks to writers like you. All that feedback you guys send me, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm constantly trying to innovate, improve, and make things better for you. Now, if you'd like that, you can see it's right there on the screen for you. Feel free to take those down. I'll have a link and stuff for you at the end, so you can take that down if you want to contact me. And of course, I also forgot to remind everyone that I am recording this, okay? So don't worry if you miss something, that's okay. You can watch the replay and you'll be able to watch and get access to this information again, okay? So today, I've been learning a lot about webinaring and this whole process, and I'm really excited to kind of dig into it deeper and really kind of get to the point, okay? One thing I realized I could do better is I really wanted to make sure that I was setting some clear goals as to what your expectations should be. I hate it when someone comes to a webinar and you feel like they never get to their point, right? They never get to the point of what they're planning to do. So today, this is what I promise to teach you. I promise to teach you how to choose the appropriate compile output to share your manuscript with others. And so we'll look at the compile output and what that is. How to determine the best compile format to export an expertly formatted manuscript. Okay, choosing that best format for you there. How to assign section layouts and types so Scrivener understands the structure of your project. And this is a really important one. This is one of the more trickier concepts to understand. But once you understand section layouts, you can do a lot with the compiler, okay? And then adjust the compile settings to achieve masterful levels of compile customization. So you can get into the nitty gritty and figure out the exact settings, the exact things that you want to do, okay? Now, as you know, it's impossible to cover everything in the compiler in one webinar. There's just so much, but I'm going to do my best to build that foundation for you guys and hopefully answer any additional questions you may have during the Q&A. So hopefully today you should leave confident in exporting a manuscript out of Scrivener. That's my goal. I want to make sure that everyone here who joins here, who watches this presentation, can feel like, yes, I know how to compile and export a manuscript out of Scrivener, okay? So let's dive right in here and let's look at it, okay? Now, there are 4 tools we're going to look at today, and the first one I want to talk about is the compile output. And this one's pretty pretty simple. But essentially, there are three main compile outputs that almost all of us are going to use at one point or another. Either printing out our manuscript. We're either going to put it out as a PDF that we may share with someone. Maybe we don't want them to necessarily be able to edit it easily, right? I know there are PDF editors out there, but yeah, it's a little bit more tricky, right? You just wanted to read it and look at it. You can send them a PDF copy, or there is, of course, the Microsoft Word export, which I know most of us probably that's the option we use the most because most of our other writer friends and things are using Microsoft Word. So it's really important we have that option there available to you, right? And of course, there are some other ones, okay? We have OpenOffice, plain text, RTF, rich text file. We also, if you're doing, what do you call it, a screenplay or something, we have our screenplay or script. We have final draft option. We have Fountain for those who use those, those other apps that you're sending it to. You can also export to an EPUB file or a Mobi file to share on as an ebook. And if you're familiar, this is kind of a more advanced option. We do have a multi-markdown option as well. Okay, so lots of great options there. Now, we're going to go through these tools one at a time, and then we're going to go back and look at them in Scrivener. Okay, so that's tool number one, our compile output. We need to determine which compile output we need to use. And like I said, I think for most of us, it's probably going to be that Microsoft Word or PDF or print. Okay, moving right along, tool number two, compile formats, okay? So compile formats, there are a few there. Some of them you may be like, okay, I know what that is, and some of them may not. Now, if you're writing a manuscript, now and that's the assumption I'm making today, most of you are novel writers, you're probably going to use manuscript. Either in Courier or Times. And that's Times New Roman is what that's going to come out. And so basically, whichever one of those you choose, that's going to be the default font that comes out. Now, it's worth noting, I can change the default font of the entire manuscript to anything I want to. And there is a way to do that. It's really easy to do. But these are kind of like the default options available to you. Now, default, the one at the very top, strives to keep your formatting exactly as it appears in Scrivener. So let's say you don't want to change any formatting at all. You have your formatting set up in Scrivener just how you like it, and that's how you want it to be shared. You could just select that default option, and Scrivener is going to do its very best to get that out in the default formatting there. In fact, it should do just fine. And then, of course, we have an outline document. That's really handy if you just want to get an outline and not the entire manuscript, exported out. Now, that's going to be a webinar for another day, but those are the three most common use cases I see for compile formats. Now, of course, there are others. We have a paperback option, a proof copy. Proof copy, as you might guess, is for sharing an advanced, uncorrected version of your manuscript, right? Of course, we have a script or screenplay option. Vellum export, if you're familiar with what Vellum is, it's a self-publishing app. So if you know what that is, that's a handy thing if you use Vellum. And then also, of course, we can create our own custom compile formats as well. And that one is a little bit more in depth. We're not going to go too deep in custom compile formats today, but we'll take a peek at it if we can at the end. Okay. Next, we have our section layouts, okay? Tool number 3. And we have, or rather, section layouts and section types. So there are two types of things. The section type, which tells Scrivener what the structure is, like a chapter or a chapter heading or a scene or a prologue or a part or whatever the case may be, a section. That's how Scrivener understands what the structure of your project is when you assign it a section type, okay? Now, section layouts are very similar to section types in that a section layout tells Scrivener what the section type should look like. And I know that's kind of confusing, but we'll look at that together. We'll talk about how that works. We'll look at how to assign a section type so Scrivener knows the structure. Now, sometimes the cool thing about section type is typically if you've structured well in Scrivener, Scrivener already knows what the section type should be. It already knows what's a chapter and what's a scene, what's a part, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes it doesn't get it right, but 99% of the time it does. In the cases it doesn't, or in the case that you want to tell Scrivener something a little bit different than the norm, That's how we do it. We do it by assigning section types. And layouts just make sure that we know that that Scrivener knows what that section type should look like, what that chapter should look like, what that scene should look like, what that part should look like. Okay, and we'll go into that a little bit. And of course, I talked about assigning a different global font earlier. That's in this section of the compiler. This is where we actually assign that different font. So if we wanted to change the font to something completely different, we could do that in the section layout section there. Okay, and tool number 4 is our compile settings. And this is where we're going to go a little bit deeper into it. We're going to look at the content tab. I think we're going to be looking at, let me check here. I think it's 3 tabs here. Yes, okay. We're going to be looking at 3 different tabs. Now, there are between 3 to 6 tabs in the compile settings in the right sidebar of the compiler. And how many tabs you have will largely depend on which compile output you have selected. That is Word, PDF, ebook. It's going to change what options what settings you have available to you. Now, since we're really focusing on the core fundamental features here, we're only going to be looking at these 3 tabs today. The contents tab, where we can adjust our section type and add and remove documents from compile. We'll look at our metadata tab, look at the book title and author section, and we'll look at settings. Sorry. Excuse me. Settings, where we can add, remove comments and add, remove footnotes, as the case may be. Sorry, guys, my cold is acting up. Well, let me stop sharing, and let's dive right in here. Okay, let's see. Desktop 1. Right into tool number 1. Oops, sorry about that. And we're going to look at tool number 1, and we're going to open up Scrivener and get started. Now, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start as if we are starting a brand new project here. I'm going to use the starter novel template, okay? And we're going to go ahead and open this up. So create, I'm going to call this my, let's call this actually, we're going to base it off of a novel that I've used, an old novel of mine, okay? Liam's Charity. Currently not working on it, but it's an excellent example for something like this. So we're going to call it Liam's Charity. We're going to go ahead and click create. Okay, and there we go. We have our novel template set up and ready to go here. Okay. Okay. So right now we have nothing in here, but I'm going to go ahead and just open up our compiler here, and I can do that in one of 2 ways. Top right corner here, I have the compile button right here. We can also go to File, Compile right here. Okay, and when we come to the screen, here are those tools I was talking about. Tool number 1, right up here at the top, the compile output. Okay, this is where it says compile for, and it has a little drop down menu, and we select which output we want. You can see we have a bunch of different options here. Most often, we're going to be using one of these 3: print, PDF, or Word. Okay, in our case, we're going to go ahead and select Word today. Okay. To our, let's see, tool number 2. Yeah, to our left, in the left sidebar, this is our compile format. So you can see, because this is, in fact, a novel template, the default compile format it's defaulting to is, in fact, the Manuscript Times. Okay, but you could do Manuscript Courier. You could choose any of these. You could even go up to the default and just have the default section there. And that will keep your formatting to whatever is in Scrivener, okay? But let's go ahead and go with Manuscript Times. Just have a look there, okay? And you can see we have all these different options here. And depending on which one we have selected, you may see the Vellum export will disappear because it is not for, it only works with Microsoft Word. Because that's how Vellum takes things in. It takes Microsoft Word files. So you could easily change that. But so depending on which one we select, may adjust some of the options we have available in our left sidebar here. You can see it changes quite significantly for some of these. For a script or screenplay, you just have that option. That's it. Same with our ebooks. They're going to be a little bit different. Okay. Okay, let's go back up here. Assuming we're going to use Microsoft Word, right? This is where we select our options. So I'm going to go ahead and click Manuscript Times. Okay. Now we're going to jump over to our tool number 3, which is right here in the center, section layouts. Actually, it's a little bit of both, because we're going to look at section layouts and we're going to look at section type, which is right here in the right sidebar here. So like I said, you can see here already that Scrivener has kind of assigned some section types based on what it's seeing in the structure of the project here. So we have a book, we have an Act 1, Chapter 1, or a chapter template, right? And so on and so forth. So actually, this is a situation where Scrivener didn't quite get it right, okay? You can see here, I'm actually treating the manuscript as a series. And this is book 1, okay? So if I came here, I'd actually want to click the section type here and say, okay, this is actually a book, but I'm gonna leave it alone. We're just gonna call it a section, okay? And then for Act 1, this is not a chapter, right? I actually want to change that, and that's actually a part heading, okay? And here's my first chapter, right? And I'd actually have to come down for these and manually change each of these to part heading 2, okay? So that is the correct structure. That's what it should look like. We have a book, which we're just treating as a section. We have a part heading. We have a chapter heading, and we have a scene. And what section layouts does is gives us the ability to control what a part heading looks like, what a section looks like, what a chapter heading looks like, and what a scene looks like, okay? And in the center here, we are given a preview of what that's going to look like. Now, the cool thing here I love about this, if I click section, right, there it is. It's going to highlight everything that has the section type section assigned to it. This is what a section looks like, okay? Now, typically, if I'm compiling a book, I'm actually going to change it from the series to just a single book like this. So we won't have to worry about what the book section type is. But we'll see here we have a part heading, right? We can see Act 1, 2A, 2B, and 3 all have part heading assigned. And this is what they're going to look like. They're going to have Part 1 and then the title. In this case, the title is what? Act 1, Act 2A, Act 2B, and Act 3. So ideally, right, I wouldn't want those to be the actual title names for Part 1. Okay, but if I change those to an actual specific name, then it would show up, Part 1 with the name there. Chapter headings look like this. You can see in this case, there is no text with the chapter heading, right? It's just Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, so on and so forth. And it's going to start whatever the numbering with whatever the first chapter is in from top to bottom here. So in this case, chapter template here, this would be Chapter 1, okay? It doesn't have any section title, so it's not going to have any title associated with it. It's just going to be Chapter 1, Chapter 2 with no title attached to it, okay? Scenes, you can see right here, are going to appear like this. They're going to have, anytime there's a break in the scene, there's going to be this little pound or hashtag between them, okay? And we can look at how to change that if you guys are interested. And they're going to have, what do you call it? It's going to start with no indentation for the first paragraph, and then we're going to have an indentation. It looks like about 0.5 indentation there all the way through. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. So this, like I said, this gives us a very quick preview of what we're looking at, what should come compiled out. Now, currently, there's nothing to compile here, right? We don't have any content in here yet, so there's nothing to bring out just yet. So we're going to hold off before we actually compile anything. But before we do that, I want to jump over to our, actually one more thing before I forget. If I wanted to change the font, the global font, to something else, you can see right here in the section layout section, there is this option here, font Times New Roman. You can see right there, it's set to Times New Roman because that is the format we have selected. If I switched over to Courier, it'd be determined by section layout. In this case, the layout is going to be Courier, right? So I actually could come here and change this to whatever I want it to be. If I want it to be Courier New or maybe Courier Prime, right? I can specifically set that. And you can see it's changing down here too. I can see, kind of preview what this is going to look like. Yes, it has the filler text, but it just gives me an idea of what it's going to look like. I can do Crimson Pro, whatever I want. And see, that's even though I have selected the Manuscript Courier selected. Back to Manuscript Times, even though this is supposed to compile out in Times New Roman, I could come here and change it to something else, right? And that's whatever I have set here is what's going to compile out, okay? Make note of this, when I made those changes, they stayed there, okay? So we'll go ahead and go back to Courier. There we go. So that's what it's going to look like, okay? Okay, perfect. Okay, let's go to our tool number 4, okay, compile settings. And that's this guy in the right sidebar here. Now, let's see here, yes. Okay, and you can see right now with Word selected, we have 4 different tabs. The ones we're going to focus on is this tab right here, the Contents tab, the Metadata tab, and our Settings tab right here, okay? So right here from the get-go, you can see I have a drop-down menu where I can select anything I want in my manuscript to compile, right? So in this case, because I'm treating my manuscript as a series instead of just a single manuscript, I can actually select this and choose which book I want to compile. So let's go ahead and look at that. Let's say I came in here, I had like 3 different books here. I'm gonna go ahead and add in those in. Book, I call this book 2, right? Book 3, oops, put a little space there. Okay, then went to the compile option right here. You can see now all 3 books are showing up here. And I could compile them all like this, but you can see I'm going to get some interesting results. So what I could do is come here down here to book 2 here. Say I'm just going to compile book 2. And if I want to, you can see how there's multiple files here that are showing up as the wrong section type. I can actually hold down Shift and push down. And I can right click and change those all to part heading just by clicking it just like that. So that saves me a lot of time when Scrivener doesn't quite get that right. And usually what I'll do too is I'll make sure I check this box here, treat compile group as a complete manuscript, because we do want it to treat it as a complete manuscript because this is a full book, right? Not just a section. Now, I might want to have that turned off if I were in book 1. Let's say I just wanted to compile this chapter, right? In which case, I don't want to treat it as a completed manuscript. I just want that chapter and that's it, right? So that's kind of how this little tool here works. It's really handy if we're kind of focusing in on a specific section that you want compiled. So if you wanted to compile a single chapter and share it with somebody, if you wanted to compile a whole act, maybe even a group of chapters, right? We could just come here and make that selection right here. So usually it just depends on how much work I want to do. All right, if I can also come here and I could just easily just go all the way to the series here and I can say, okay, I'm going to compile the whole series, but actually I'm not compiling book 2, right? Now it's pretty easy for me to uncheck these. These are all, that's removing those from compiling and it's just compiling book 1. But it would have been just as easy to come here and go to book 1 and do it here. In fact, if I had in book 2 like 40 chapters and 4 different parts or across 4 different parts, it's not going to be so easy to just come in here, right, and uncheck all those boxes. You could have like 30, 40 chapters that need to be unmarked. It could be a lot of work. So that's why that's really handy there to have that option to kind of switch between these. Okay, go ahead and mark those back on. Let's see. Okay, so we've looked at the title here, right? We can adjust the section type. In this case, once again, we have the wrong section type, so we'll select those. Right click, change to part heading, right, and make sure those are showing up. And you can kind of see, hopefully you've noticed this, but the ones where Scrivener has assigned it, it'll be kind of in this, what do you call it? Light text, like this light colored gray text, and it'll be italicized. Whereas the ones I've physically assigned them, it's just clearly no full black font, no italics involved. Excuse me. Okay. Now down here at the bottom, we also have the option to add in front matter and back matter. In this case, you can see for the manuscript format, we have a title page we could assign here, right? If we had any back matter, which we don't, we could add it in here. I believe we'll just do the paperback here. And you can see it here. I could actually uncheck the title page. Maybe I want the copyright, the dedication. I mean, obviously those are normally not things we'd have at the end, but hopefully you can see the idea. If you had some back matter and things you wanted to add to the end of your manuscript, you could have those added in separately. They don't have to actually be in the manuscript folder. They can be stored somewhere else. And actually, I prefer that because depending on your format, depending on what you're compiling for, you may not always want these files in here. You may only want them in when you're doing specific things. So in this case, maybe doing like a EPUB book, right? I want back matter in there for that. Maybe I'm uploading it to Amazon, right? And I want that back matter in there, right? Or maybe I'm just sending it to a friend, right? And I don't need that section in there, or an editor, and I don't need that information. Don't need the front matter, don't need the back matter, as the case may be, but it's really easy to turn those on and off right there at the bottom. Okay. So, let's see what we got here. Oh, we switched this to paperback. Let's switch to manuscript times. Looking good. Okay, looking good. So that's how we kind of mess with this section right here. You can see it if you find yourself, this is one kind of rule of thumb I have. If you find yourself unchecking a lot of things to compile something, that's when I usually switch over to this guy here. I'll try to narrow it down to the lowest level I can go right here. Let's say I want Act 1, but I want several chapters in it. Then that's when I start unchecking things, as the case may be, right? Okay, perfect. Okay, let's move to our metadata tab. Now, one thing you may notice, I actually called my novel the name, it's my project, the actual name of the book, right? But if you didn't, let's say you had a working title or something, this title will show initially whatever the name of your project is, right? So if it was called One True Love, right? One True Love, right? And you're like, okay, that wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, One True Love, right? I needed to change that title. This is where I would make that change, okay? This is where I would come in and say, okay, even though my project's name is Liam's Charity, I actually want the title to be One True Love or to be something else, right? And that way, you don't actually have to change your project's name. In fact, if you come over here to one of my old projects, The Otter and the Amulet, we have long since changed that name. In fact, we've gone through a couple different names for that book. And so rather than changing the project name, which I've kind of got familiar with the name is The Otter and the Amulet, we just changed the name here. I just go ahead and change it in here. Anytime we compile it, if I have an updated name, I update it there. And that's what that's the title that comes out when I compile the manuscript. Now I'm going to switch it back to Liam's Charity, and the abbreviated title, I'm just going to go with LC. Okay. Now, authors is also great. So if you have multiple authors, in this case, it's just me, right? But if I had multiple authors, I could put them here. So there's Oliver Evanson. I could throw in John Smith, right? And Scrivener would know those are the authors that are part of this book. So you could have different authors here, right? Throughout for the manuscript here. We can add a forename or surname. We can even, we can even add subject, company, keywords, etc., all the way down here. Any sort of extra metadata we may want to add in here related to describing what the book is, right? In most cases, for most of us, we're going to mostly just deal with these three guys right here, okay? Okay, moving right along to our settings, okay? This is a big one. So let's say you have footnotes. Maybe, for whatever reason, if you want to just remove your footnotes outright, you can just click that box and that'll remove footnotes for you altogether. Some people, obviously some manuscripts and things, if it's nonfiction in particular, footnotes are used quite frequently. That's where you would adjust your footnotes. Now, by default, footnotes are included automatically. If you don't want them to be, you can check that box there. You can also adjust how footnotes come out of Scrivener. You can have them export as inspector footnotes as endnotes, or you can export and basically what that means is I think instead of having them appear in each page, right, the footnote at the bottom of each page, they actually export all the footnotes for a single section at the end of that section, right? So that's kind of handy. Okay, you can turn those on. Okay, and another cool thing, okay, if you use struck through tests like me, I do quite frequently, I'll strike through something I'm not sure I want to get rid of. I can actually have Scrivener say, oh, anything that's struck through in my manuscript, just delete that. Just take it out, okay? So I don't actually have to have it deleted in Scrivener, but when it is compiled out, it will delete that for me. We can remove any trailing white space from documents, things like that. Those are kind of like little handy text tidying features available here. If you have any highlighting that you don't want to come out, you can remove highlighting. If you have text coloring you don't want to come out, you can remove the text color. If you have any hyperlinks, you can remove those out too. Super handy. Now I'm going to stop there. There are clearly some other options here, okay, that you can mess around with, but those are the key ones I want to talk about today. Those are pretty simple and easy to use, and they're pretty handy. They're use cases where most of us are probably going to need to use those at one point or another. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so that is our settings tab. Now you can see there's so much more. One thing I want to say is I can actually come here, I can right click this guy and I can duplicate and edit this format, and I can create my own custom format. You can see this has its own menu with things that I can adjust and change. Now this is kind of where I would say we kind of jump into the more advanced level, customization, where we're really getting deep into it and trying to make our own special thing. It's not as hard as you think, but it also takes some time, right? And I'll probably have to do a whole separate webinar where I just talk about this, and I'll plan that and get that set up for you guys. But one thing I wanted to note in here, this section, before I moved on, okay, was the option to test. So I can actually make adjustments to my compile format. And before I even before I jump out of here, I can actually test it here to make sure I'm getting the result that I want. And that was a recent feature that was added in. I love that because now I don't have to come out of the compile menu, compile it, and then come back in and change everything. I can actually stay in this menu, export it out, see did the change get made? Nope. Or yes, it did. And then great. Don't have to go all that back and forth. So take advantage of that nifty little tool there. That is really handy. Go ahead and click cancel. Okay. So there we go. That is our core fundamental tools in the compiler here. We have our compile output, right? We have our compile formats. We have our section layouts over here. Or sorry, our section types over here. Our section layouts which show us what their section types are going to look like. And last but not least, we have, of course, our compile settings over here where we can make adjustments to what's being compiled, what the title and things are for our book, and also any additional settings we may want to make for this specific project, right? Okay. One thing I forgot to do was assign section layouts. And we'll come back to that in a minute because I actually want to have a manuscript to assign things to so you can kind of see what that's going to look like. But essentially, just in a nutshell, assigning section layouts allows us to choose what a part heading looks like, what a chapter heading looks like, what a scene looks like, what a section looks like, and what the front matter look like. Okay, so just to give you an example, if I went to chapter heading, right, that's the section time that we're using, and I wanted the chapter heading to include not just chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, but also include the title of the chapter, I would scroll down here. I would select chapter 1, section title. Okay, we'll click OK. Boom. Now you can see here, if I go down here, chapter 1, section title. So that means every chapter that has a section title or that has a name, it's going to go ahead and use the name of the title of that chapter in there along with the chapter numbering. Okay, that is really handy to know. And you can see this one's not showing right. Put it as a section. There we go. Okay, now let's go ahead and cancel out of this. And let's jump back in here real quick to our presentation. Now we've kind of gone over those core tools. What we're going to do is we're actually going to compile a manuscript. And this is what we're going to do. This is the process, right, that we should go through. First off, we're going to open up our compile menu, right? We're going to select our desired compile output depending on our specific need, right? We're going to review the content to be compiled and the settings. We're going to select our ideal compile format for whoever we're sending it to. And that's going to be very specific to you. Whoever you're sending it to, they're going to have specific formatting needs and things like that you're going to have to address. Sorry. And of course, we're going to preview our compile in the section layout in that center section there. Make sure everything's looking how it should. That's kind of our first initial test to make things are looking how they should be. And last but not least, we're actually going to compile the manuscript. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it. Okay, and we're actually going to start a little bit back up here. Further back, we're going to import a manuscript into Scrivener, and we're going to kind of break it down as if I were just. And then we're going to go ahead and open straight into Finder, and was trying to do it fresh. And go to the manuscript. So first off, as you know, I could just drag and drop this guy in here, like so. Let me see if I can, like this. But that's going to create a lot of work for me to do because I'm going to have to, it's a long manuscript, 58,000 words. I'll have to come through and break that apart piece by piece by piece. So to save us some time, we're going to make sure we have the correct selection selected, right? I want it to go into book 1. We're going to go to File, Import, Import and Split. I'm going to select this guy right here. And I'm going to split selections into sections by finding separation of the text. Specifically, I'm going to be looking for the separator chapter. Okay, so anytime Scrivener encounters chapter, it's going to separate that into a different document for me. Now, the most common option you've seen in the past is the pound symbol or the hashtag symbol there. So long as you have a way for Scrivener to know what to look for, where to break it up, that's fine. Just use whatever you have. I'm using chapter. Okay, there we go. Those got imported in. You can see we have about... Let's see here, 37 chapters. So and we have 4 parts. By 4, we're just going to do some math about 9 chapters apart. I'm going to go ahead and move those around real quick. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and move this guy to trash because I don't need that. So we have here We're going to come here and select 9. And I'm going to bring those up into Act 1. We'll bring 10, 11, 12 through 18 and bring those into Act 2A. Oops. My mistake. Let's fix that. Okay. 18 up to 2A. I'll close these up to make it a little bit easier for me too. 19, that looks about right. 2B. And finally, Act 3, 28 through 37. Act 3. There we go. Okay, so already, really quickly, I had a manuscript I just brought in. I broke them up by acts. Obviously, this may change, as I learn more about the structure of my project, whether these actually fit in here. But for our purposes, for the example today, this should work great. Now, I'm going to go ahead and remove this. One thing you may notice already is that the default format I use in Scrivener is a chapter with scenes inside of it. In this case, each chapter is a single document instead. This is a perfectly valid way to write a chapter in Scrivener. It's just a matter of preference. In this case, to save us some time, I'm going to go ahead and move this guy to the trash. Okay. And we're going to use this structure to see how this structure might work if I wanted to compile it out just like this. We'll look at both ways, but this is how we're going to look at it first. Okay. So there we go. Looking good. We've got Act 1, Act 2A, 2B, and Act 3 all ready to go. In fact, I'm going to change this. I'm going to call this Liam's Charity. Okay, that's book 1. And I'm going to give my series title a name to Finding Love Abroad series. We'll just go with that. The main thing, even if you don't have a good name for anything, and this is something I talk about a lot, just giving clear names is really, really helpful, right? So we'll call this USA. And I think this one was Gavarongo. I don't know. Just a bunch of names and things. Hope of Charity. These are the names of the parts. Okay, so that's why I'm changing the name. We'll call this in the USA, and Act 3. We'll call this the moment. Let's go with that. Okay. So main thing here is I just want to have very clear names so that when it compiles out, it actually, compiles a nice name out of Scrivener and not just like some random string of letters, right? Or even like Act 2A or Act 2B. I want it to be a very nice, clear name, okay? So there we go. We've got that set up. Book 1 is ready to compile, okay? So let's go ahead and go to our compile menu, File, Compile, and let's start out. Okay, first off, what am I compiling for? Okay, I'm going to assume I'm going to be compiling this to share with a peer, okay, a fellow writer, okay? So I'm going to go to Microsoft Word here. I'm going to choose Manuscript Times as my format, okay? I could choose Courier if they prefer Courier. You could actually talk to the person and say, hey, what format would you prefer this in? Would you prefer it in Microsoft Word? Would you prefer it in PDF? It may vary from person to person what the need may be and what they may want. And it's worth having that conversation, right? And finding out what they're looking for. Of course, if it's an editor or a publishing house, you'll want to look specifically for their formatting guidelines to make sure that your manuscript meets their submission guidelines, of course, okay? And that's going to vary from publisher to publisher, editor to editor, agent to agent. Okay, so we got that word. We're just going to go with Manuscript Times here. We're going to keep it as Times New Roman. That's fine. Okay, so already I'm seeing a problem here, right? If you look over here right now, we have a section here, which is fine. We're actually going to come here and select Liam's Charity, and we're going to make sure we treat this compiled group as a complete manuscript, okay? And then we're going to look here, okay, so we have a part, that's right. These parts are all right, but everything else is showing up as what? A scene. So we have no chapters, right? Only scenes. That would be problematic, right? Because we actually want these to be chapters, right? So what we would do in this case, where, typically the document is the scene. In this case, the document actually represents a chapter. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to select all these guys. I'm going to right-click and change them to chapter, okay? Now, it's important I change it to chapter and not chapter heading because I want it to be an actual chapter with text, okay? So we're going to have to come here. There we go. You can see that how the difference here in the center. We have a chapter numbering, and we have the text involved too, okay? So that's a big That's a big deal. Okay, we want to make sure we have both. If we're going to do it like this, where one document is one chapter, we want to have a chapter with text. Now I'm going to go a step further here. I'm going to go ahead and click Assign Section Layouts, and I'm using chapter here. I also want the section title. Okay, maybe we'll make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so you can see if I scroll down one. Move this out of the way real quick. There is chapter 1 section title. That's the one I want. Okay. When I make this change, it's important that I have chapter selected. I can't tell you how many times I've clicked part and had this selected and like, oh, let me change it to chapter with section title. And then all your part headings will now suddenly come out with chapter 1, chapter 2. Oh, it's a big mess. So make sure you do have the correct section type selected. And then you select the layout that you want it to be. In this case, we want chapter 1, section title with text. Okay. Click OK. Okay, perfect. Now, if we look at it here, all the ones that have been changed to chapter are going to look like this, right? But we still have some that are showing as scenes. Let's come here. Let's change those two. Right click. We're going to go, once again, we're going to click chapter, not chapter heading. And we'll change this again. We'll go to chapter, all the way down, change to chapter. Okay, now this is what it should look like. Just to preview it out, we're going to see what it looks like. We have our part heading right here. All these should look like a part, okay? And it should say part 1. It should go part 1, part 2, part 3, etc. all the way down, okay? And it should have part 1 and the title of the document. Okay, the title of that folder. So it should be part 1, In the USA. Part 2, Gavrongo. Part 3, Hope of Charity. Part 4, The Moment. Okay. Then we come to chapter. Okay, and each of these chapters should be chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, etc., all the way down. Now I already see a problem. Okay, because chapter 1 and the section title. What's the section title? The section title is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can see we're going to have chapter 1, and then we're going to have all these numbers here. Ideally, we don't want these to be numbers, right? We want them to have actual names. Okay, and another problem we may run into too, just so you know, because I'm already seeing ahead, is we have a duplicate title in here as well. Okay, so all these have these titles in here, so we're going to have a lot of duplication here. What I would want to do is I want to come through and delete all these, or if I didn't want to do that, let's say I just want to keep this, I could just turn off the section title here as well. I could come here and say, okay, chapters actually shouldn't have this. Okay, and they should just come as chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, like this. I could, no, like that. Let me see if let me find it like it was originally, like this, right? Oops, I made the mistake. Part heading. Don't want that. Cancel that out. Assign section layouts. Click chapter, and then I could switch this back to that, right? Or back to this. Okay. But we're going to go ahead and keep it. And I think what we're going to do is come through here, and I will quickly. I don't know if I can delete these quickly. Oh, boy. Not a good way to do it. Just come through. Ideally, we shouldn't have any of those in there, right? This will take forever. Scrolling. Let's see what we can do. We'll just do the first couple ones here. And what we'll do is here, I'll actually call this, we'll just change the names here. Out of focus. Chapter 2, I can't remember what this one was called. 2 for fun, we'll just call it old habits. Okay, we'll delete that. And I don't need this pound symbol here, I'll delete that. Ideally, if you've done a lot of this already in Scrivener, you won't have to do any of this extra work that I'm doing right now, right? But if you had just brought in a manuscript, then you may have to do some of this to get rid of this stuff here. Right, anchor last. Very good. Go. Lost at sea. Right. And I can quickly come through and add these all in. There's nothing in this chapter yet, right? So we're going to get something a little bit different there. And then excuses for breakfast. There we go. Delete that. Let's just do Act 1 to save us some time. And ideally, you don't want any blank spaces here, like above or below your chapter. Otherwise, you'll get some kind of weird results as well. So if you ever see like a bunch of pound symbols or a bunch of things at the end of your chapter or something like that, come to the bottom of it or to the top of it and make sure that there's no extra new lines there above or below. Okay, there we go, like this. Yeah, get rid of those guys. And a quick way to do that for being really fun, having a lot of fun with it. Click inside here, go to edit, writing tools. Oops, not writing tools. Edit tidying, text tidying, and then you can actually remove empty lines between paragraphs like so. It'll get rid of those pretty quickly for you. Okay, looks good. Okay. So ideally, this is how most of my manuscripts will look like. Something like this, where it's just the text and the name of the document is right here. Okay. So let's go ahead and compile it out now and see what it looks like. Okay, once again, let's double check everything. Section title looks good. Let's switch over to our Leaves Charity here. Let's switch to a Microsoft Word document. Make sure we have manuscript times selected. Part 1. Parts are looking good. Chapters are looking good, at least for the Act 1, right? And there we go. Thankfully, because we just have Chapter 1 and the text, we don't have any scenes or any extra things to worry about. So we're going to go ahead and click Compile. Oops, one thing I almost forgot. Treat compile group as a complete manuscript. It's going to add that front matter in there for us as well. And we'll go ahead and compile that out and see how it looks. Okay, I'm going to stick that on our desktop here. Let's see what happens. And depending on the size of your manuscripts, it can take a little bit of time. Thankfully, even most large manuscripts don't take too long. Okay, there it is. Opened up in Word. Okay, looking good. So in this case, you can see the my name is there. I think this is the title page, right? So it doesn't have all. I haven't updated that with all my information, but it did put the word count in there, and it also put the name of the manuscript, right? Not sure why it's missing the author. That's an interesting thing. I'll have to look at that. I'm not sure we added that in. Let's see. Let's go back. This is where the fun comes in, right? Where we figure out what went wrong. Why didn't we get the result we wanted? Okay, that's why. Because there is no author listed here. Okay. One thing, if you cancel this out, let me show you. Even though I added it in, if you come back, you can see it's not there. So we did add it in earlier, but we didn't actually compile anything. Once you compile it out, then it'll stay there. So let's go ahead and try this again. I'm going to go ahead and do it as 1. One thing I highly recommend you do is not overwrite. I found that when I overwrite things that I've compiled, I get weird results. It doesn't always work properly. So I always create a new document, or I either delete the old one altogether. In this case, I'm just going to create a new document like this, and we're going to export it out. And this is where that trial and error comes in. If you see something that's not quite right, we jump back into Scrivener. We try to figure out what went wrong, right? In this case, we'll close this out. Did not finish. Compile. It says it's there. I don't see it though. Give me a second. This one, my Mac is playing tricks on me. Desktop. There it is. It's there. Oh, there it is. Now it's showing up. Weird. Okay, there we go. Oh, there it is. Oliver Evanson is now showing up there. That's perfect. Okay. There's part 1 in the USA. Chapter 1. Okay, yeah, looking good. Okay, I guess I didn't switch it back to chapter 1, chapter 2. You can see we don't have any section title there. If we come down here, let's scroll down here. Okay, we still have these pound symbols in between sections. And so what I do is I go through and I just kind of say, okay, what came out right, what didn't come out right. So in this case, we didn't get the section titles like I was hoping, okay? So I need to figure out why. What happened there? So let's look at that. We come here. Okay, yep, the section layout didn't get assigned properly. Let's go to chapter. Right there, click OK. Looking good. And then we'll go ahead and compile it again. This time we're going to go with compile number 3. Actually, yeah, we'll go 3. Actually, 2. We'll do 2. Compile it out. Now I can identify a bunch of different changes and go back and fix them all and then come back, but I typically like to work one thing at a time, kind of identify each problem at a time. So we're actually going to go here. We're going to delete these old 2. There's number 2. There we go. Looking good. Okay, yeah, there we go. Out of focus. And I'll scroll down here. See if we can find chapter 2. Where is it? There we go. Chapter 2, 2 for fun. Yep, looks good. And you can see with minimal effort on my part, I've already got a nice looking manuscript that I could share with someone with minimal effort here. Now, of course, is there more that I could do? Of course. There is more I could work on and make better. But for the most part, though, a lot of it has been done for me. A lot of it looks really good. Yep. Yeah, I'm liking it. Chapter numbering. I mean, chapter numbering is there. Titles are there. Page numbering is there. Everything is looking really, really nice and clean and good to share. Now, of course, if I scroll down far enough, we're going to find some chapters where things, haven't been adjusted in Scrivener. I just want to show you what that will look like if I can find a chapter real quick. Okay, no. Let's see if I can find one. Okay, yeah, chapter 8 would be. Okay, yeah, here's one. So we have chapter 10, and then 10, and then 10, right? So we had this text already in it in Scrivener. So fortunately, I identified those problems long beforehand, and I was able to tell what was gonna happen there. In this case, the title of the document is 10. It has 10 written in the text twice, it looks like, and then it has the actual name there. Okay. Now, it's worth noting you could actually have this in here and just remove all titling altogether and just have it be 10, the Hayworth healing contract. I've just found this is not as good because if we come back to Scrivener, okay, we'll actually save this. Where are you, Scrivener? Every time I move any of these chapters around, let's say Brunch with a Billionaire. Actually, no, let's go with, let's come down here. Okay, chapter 10, for example, right? 10. 10, 10, 10, right? If I move chapter 10 down to chapter 14, right? Suddenly, not only do I have to change the name, I have to change the name of the title of the document. I have to change inside the text. This is now chapter 14. I have to change, I may have to even adjust that, You can see how tedious that would be. So rather than doing 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, right? I just use the title. I remove this guy from there, move those extra spaces, and that way I can move the Hayworth healing contract anywhere I want to, right? And Scrivener will know based on its structure, the order that it's in the binder, what chapter that it is. In this case, it knows this is chapter 11. It knows now it's chapter 12, and so on, right? So, highly recommend you do that. It's going to make your compile experience a lot better and a lot easier. Okay, well, that's looking good. Let me see if there's anything else we can look at before I jump out of this. Okay, yeah. I want to jump back in the compiler here real quick. And I know there's some questions around, hey, how do I get rid of those pound, this guy right here? How do I get rid of this pound thing? I don't like that every time there's a new scene or a scene break that there's a pound there. That's really easy to do. We can actually right-click, duplicate, and edit this format. We're going to go into this section here. I'm going to call this Manuscript Times Oliver's Oliver Edition, okay? And we're actually going to come down here to page settings, I believe it is. Let's see, header and footer. No, that's not it. Where is it? It's been a minute since I've come in here. Let's see if I can find it. Section layouts. No, separators. There we go. Separators. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so separators for text files. You can see there it is, the pound symbol. Now, I could just delete that, and there'll be nothing there. There'll be no separation between them. I could add in a page break. I could add in an empty line, a single return, whatever you want to do to get rid of that. Most often, I will do, because I still want to see it, I usually do my asterisks. That's a very common thing we see, especially here in the U.S. When there's some sort of break and they want to notify the reader that's either a big return, right, where there's just some blank space. You can clearly tell that the paragraphs is a new scene, or we have that asterisk there. And I'm sure there's some style guidelines behind why they do that. But for me personally, that's just how I like to do it. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click Save, right? Now, if I come down here, hopefully that should show up. It's not, but let's go ahead and compile out and see if that change was made. To 33, compile. Okay, you know what? I just realized is that I don't have any scene breaks in this one. But if I did, it would come up. Let's actually do that real quick. So let's look at this. Let's say we went back to our traditional way of doing our chapters here. So let's say I was doing a chapter folder, right, with a scene inside of it. And actually, we're going to break this up into two different scenes. Right about here. And we'll just go ahead and right-click, split with selection as title. And we're going to call this out of focus. And usually I'd have some sort of something in here about what this is about. We'll just go ahead and call it this. Okay. And this is the typical format you'll see me use typically. Okay. So if I came in here, and let's pretend we had done everything like that, right? We'll go to compile here. Put this out of the way. And we'll come here, you can see, okay, now Scrivener's already saying, oh, hey, this is a chapter heading, and these are in fact scenes, right? And we're actually going to narrow down here. We can go in the USA. I don't want to compile any of these other guys here, right? Just this single chapter here like this. We're not going to treat it as a compile group, a completed manuscript. I just want this one chapter. Okay, and we're going to look at this. Okay, we have our chapter heading. Once again, I need to assign this so it has the section title. So make sure we have chapter heading selected. We want chapter 1 plus section title there. Okay. And okay, scenes should look like this. Let me check the format real quick. We can go ahead and right click and click edit format. See if we change that. Folder, yep, custom, yep, that looks good. Okay, save. And then we're gonna go ahead and click compile. Let's go with that. There we go. Number 4. Now we should see where there's a scene break between the two. We should see that there. Oh, it didn't change. Why? Okay. Looks like it didn't work. And this happens sometimes, guys. It happens. And that's where we get to go and find out what happened, what went wrong, why didn't that work. Okay, so that's where our scene break should be. That's where that should have been changed. Let's look and see if we can figure out what's going on. Edit format. Back here, file. That's text file, so it looks good. Let's look at our chapter title, chapter, blank line separator. Okay, section text. Let's check this guy right here. 3. And I don't like having any blank line separators, so we're just going to do nothing there. The ones that are highlighted here, the section layouts that are kind of bolded, that means these are the ones that are in use. Okay, that are in fact being used. Oops. Okay. Okay, let's try that. But usually this guy does the trick, but sometimes it doesn't. Okay. Let's click save. Let's try this again. Actually, you know what we could do? Let's use that tool right here. And just do it right from there. Okay, that should pull that up for us really fast. I'm gonna delete some of these guys here. Oh, there, it pulled it up. Oh, no, it didn't. I'm gonna delete these guys here. I'm gonna pull this up. Okay, chapter 1, out of focus. Yeah. Oh, there it is. There we go. Okay, so making those changes, I got that adjustment I wanted right there, that little 3 asterisks. Now, you could argue I could have easily done that in Word, right? Honestly, if it was just 1 or 2 chapters, it might just be easier to adjust that in Word and move on with your day. But imagine now for a minute that you had 40 chapters, right? And you had to make sure that all of those were consistent all the way throughout the cross. Doing that in Word would suddenly become a lot more tedious. So that's where I kind of see the benefit of the compiler here, where I can, if I'm working with a large document and I have a lot of things that need to be adjusted, make sure everything's adjusted properly in the same way, right? Then I'm going to go ahead and make the adjustment in Scrivener. If I'm just doing a single chapter, maybe even 2 or 3 chapters, I'll probably just do it in Word. And that's perfectly okay. Whichever way is going to be quicker and easier for you, that's the way you should do, okay? So adjust accordingly. Be wise. Don't waste time. Don't waste your time with it, right? Make sure that you're just, you're utilizing the tool to your advantage, right? You're not wasting time on something that could have taken like 5 minutes, 2 minutes in Word, maybe even 30 seconds in Word, trying to figure it out in Scrivener, right? If it's only going to be really, really useful for you if you have a big old massive document that you're trying to get consistent across the board, okay? And that's just my personal opinion there, okay? Okay, well, that looks good. We'll go ahead and delete that guy there. Hopefully that helps you out. Hopefully that kind of orients you into the world of the compiler. I know there's a lot more we could go into depth here, but hopefully you've got the core fundamental base that'll set you up for success. So, real quick, we're going to look at a couple more things, and then we're going to jump into our Q&A. So, let me stop sharing for a second. Again, share my presentation, and let's dive right in here. Now, of course, we have some excellent free resources available for you guys. I have my free starter novel template, which I'll get you a link for if you want to get that. We have our webinar library available to you as well. We have our user forum, user manuals, our blog and video tutorials available at literaturelocke.com and ogevanson.com/tools. So, and of course, last but not least, a full knowledge base of information that has just so much information available for you to solve your specific needs and problems. Okay, you can access all these things and more via my links right here. Okay, so feel free to jump into that. It'll have the webinar library, has access to the starter novel template. Those of you who are already subscribed and have the starter novel template, like I said, I do go ahead and update this regularly. Okay, so stay tuned. I send out those updates via email as they come out. Okay, looking good. So tell me, guys, how do you feel? How do you feel about the compiler right now? I'm hoping you feel better. I'm hoping that you've moved in the right direction. So, did I deliver? Do you feel you are more confident with Scrivener's compiler now versus from when we started? And if not, that's okay. You know, if you feel like, man, this is still way too much, that's perfectly fine. You know, I want to know so we can get you the information and tools you need to get where you need to go. But hopefully, my goal is you have a clear understanding of what the compiler is, at least in its core tenets, right? Its main tools. Oh, I can't get to my chat. The presentations keep me from getting my chat. Give me a second. Pull that up here. Okay. More comfortable now? Yeah. Okay. So Brenda says, I feel much more confident now. We'll need to play around with it a bit for sure. Yep. To fine tune it to your project. Yep, definitely. Mark says, more comfortable with trying my first compile now. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. And as a reminder for everyone, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to go ahead and watch this again and kind of walk through it and figure it out for yourself some more. I know the first time through it can feel like a lot, but you can definitely figure it out. So John says, for publishing, say on Amazon, make sure you use a licensed font for print books. For Kindle, it's not an issue. Okay, yep, that's smart. Thank you, John, for that advice. That's an excellent piece of advice. Let's see here. John says, my biggest problem was the inclusion of the pound symbol and how Dreamweaver treated it when it imported into HTML, which probably isn't anyone else's concern. But yeah, hopefully, John, I hope I answered that question for you, how to remove that pound. We can look into that a little bit deeper if we need to, but that's all in that extra compile setting there. We can definitely adjust that. A. Bradbury says, a little bit more. I do sometimes have glitches where some sections come out default font used in Scrivener, not in Times, using a customized version of the manuscript templates. Okay, yep. No, I get that. Yep, so I totally understand that. You can see even me today, I still had some problems. It happens. It happens to the best of us, and we do our best. We try to figure out what those problems are. And that's what I love. One thing I love is that we have an excellent technical support team to help you work through those issues. So if you're having issues, you've been working on the compiler and that you're just banging your head against the wall, reach out to us. We want to help you. We want to get you there. Marcia says, appreciate the links too. Glad to help you out. Deborah says, I like this presentation better than the last one about it. Maybe it's a bit more clear. The steps were a little bit slower. Yes, Deborah. And that was a big deal with this presentation. I've been working hard to make this a little bit more clear, a little bit more easy to understand, because it is kind of a confusing topic. It's not the clearest tool in Scrivener. It's a tough concept to understand. So I'm glad to hear that this presentation made it better than the last one, because that's my goal. This whole year, you're going to see some new stuff. You're going to see some old stuff revamped to be simpler, more clear, and easy to understand. So that's good. Esther says, I'm new to being an author, so I'm a little bit more aware of how it works, but I need a more basic understanding of the program and its functions. Thank you for proving help to us. Yep, Esther, happy to help out with that. I know this is kind of an extra topic, I guess you could say, on top. This is for me, this is the end game with Scrivener. I'm learning the compiler last. That's the last thing I'm working on as a writer. Usually I'm working on other elements, right? But the good news is I have tons and tons of other content that covers the introductory elements of Scrivener earlier on. So look at the webinar library, check out my blog, check out the Literature Latte blog. We have tons of excellent stuff to get you started and get you pointed in the right direction, okay? And Abigail says, feel more confident in giving it a go rather than just randomly pressing things. No, I get that. I get that. At least, hopefully you have a process now to get you to help you troubleshoot the problems you're running into, okay? So real quick, let's talk about what's next, okay? Okay, so what's next? Of course, we have our next webinar is Get Organized in Scrivener, the Writer's Guide to Using the Scrivener Corkboard. I'm very excited about this. I know I keep saying that, but I am, honestly. I love talking about the corkboard. Believe it or not, I know a lot of people love the corkboard, but that's actually the tool I have used the least in Scrivener for my outlining. I'm a big fan of the outliner, and so it's been good for me to get more familiar myself with the Scrivener's corkboard. And I'm excited to share what I've learned with you. It's going to be a lot of fun as we dive deep into the corkboard and see how this tool can be really, really useful. And I'll grab that link for you. Hopefully I can grab this here. Oh, well, I'll get it in a second. I'll grab that link for you in a second, but it is available in that list of links I sent out for you. And of course, now we have our Q&A. Now, we'll try to get to as much as we can in the next 15 minutes for any questions you may have. But if there's any questions we can't get to, I highly recommend you reach out to our technical support lines right here at Mac.support, Windows.support, iOS.support, or Scalpel.support to answer your specific question you may have. And it's okay. You know, if you have a project you're having trouble compiling, reach out to us. If you're on a Mac, a PC, an iPhone, an iPad, wherever you're at, we want to help you. So ideally, if you can send it to the platform, to the email of the platform you're using, that would be great. But one way or the other, we'll get you taken care of and make sure you get the help you need to get that problem solved. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and open it up for the Q&A from any questions you guys may have. I want to hear about it. You know, let's dive right in. Let's see what we can do. We have about 10 to 15 minutes. We can cover any additional questions you may have. Bear with me. I'm going to take a drink real quick. I am having a hard time breathing here. Okay, let's see what we can do. Okay, so Frank says, I'm running into formatting problems I suspect come from various other tools to write a draft. Free write, ProWriting Aid, AutoCrit when I import or cut paste the documents from these programs. Any advice? Okay, that is an excellent question, Frank. Okay. First off, I know cutting and pasting directly into Scrivener is easy to do, right? Okay. I actually avoid doing that if I can help it. Okay, I don't mind doing that, cutting and pasting directly for research and things like that. That's fine. That's no problem with that because most of my research and stuff, it's not going to be compiled or exported out. But if it's going to go into the draft, I actually use the drag and drop import method, or I do file import of some way. And ideally, I want that import to be a Word file or a rich text file because those transfer into Scrivener really well, and often the formatting will be adjusted as part of that transfer to whatever the formatting is in Scrivener, okay? So that alone should eliminate most of the issues just by importing it as a rich text file or as a Word document. However, there is one other really important tool you can use to hopefully avoid most of that as well, and it's called Paste and Match Style. That one is a critical tool, okay? Let's actually go ahead and go there real quick. I'm going to do it right over here. If we open up Scrivener, okay, right here. Ugh, come on, work with me here, okay? If I wanted to paste something in, we edit, paste and match style. Okay, first I have to make sure I'm actually in here with something copied. But right, I can come here. If I paste and match style, almost guaranteed it's going to correctly input that information. In fact, use the mistake I make as well as I paste it in regularly. It keeps all that formatting, and even it doesn't even always keep it correctly. And we get a bunch of different formatting all throughout our project. Not ideal. So that's what I recommend you do, Frank. I recommend you either use edit, paste and match style when you're pasting stuff into Scrivener. And ideally, you know, like I said, it's not the best way to do it. The best way to bring that in is file, import, right? And then choose those files and import them in directly. Scrivener will handle a lot of that formatting conversion for you when you do it that way. Hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, that should do it. That should fix that. Hopefully that will fix that problem for you. Now, in the case where, now I just thought about it, where you already have that text in there, and things, the formatting is kind of coming out kind of skewonky and not right. What I would probably do at this point is I'd come to my whole series or my whole manuscript folder here, right? I would select it and go to Scrivening's view like this, okay? Or like this, right? Okay. And then I would actually push Command A or Control A on a PC, and I would actually come in here and I'll change all the font to what I want it to be, right? In this case, you can see it had a different font. And it may take a minute because the longer the document, the more it's going to take. So you just give it a minute, let it do its thing, and it will be fine. Okay, there it goes. Now all that has been adjusted. In this case, you see I imported this in, and it still was a little bit different. I'm actually going to change this over to size font 12 instead. There we go. And now the whole manuscript, all that formatting has been changed and adjusted because I have selected it all and made that change, okay? Of course, I could even do spacing. I could do any formatting here from this toolbar I wanted to do by doing it this way. Just making sure that I have everything selected, okay? All 58,081 words, right? So hopefully that'll help you with that problem there. So we come over here, right? And where was it? I just forgot everything I just did. Oh, brain, why are you breaking down on me today? Answer the question was, okay, yeah, cutting and pasting stuff in. So if I wanted to change all the font for something that already exists, I come here, click my manuscript folder right here, right? I'm going to push Command A, or I could also right click and click Select All, right? Let's see if the option is there. I don't see it. Well, if for any reason it's not there, Command A or Control A on a PC or on a PC will work. Command A on a Mac, right? Then what I'll do is I'll come up here to my toolbar. I can change things to whatever I want them to be. Okay, size 12, regular. I could even go to italic, right? We're going to go with regular. We don't want to do that. Okay. Bear in mind, if you do that, if you have any italics or things like that, and I just changed everything to regular, all those italics are going to be gone. So be mindful when you're making changes to all the formatting to your whole thing. But this will be the best way to get everything in line. And then you may have to go back individually and change specific formattings for specific sections. You can see it's ideal to get that formatting right the first time so you don't have to kind of go back and try to fix everything, right? So there you go. That's how we do that. And like I said, you could do the spacing. You could do all this, anything here. You can come here and add and make those changes to it. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Are there any other questions before we wrap up today? We have about 5 more minutes before we close. I'm happy to answer any more questions. Let me pull up the chat. Sometimes I'm missing stuff in the chat. Let's see here. So Lucy said this was very helpful as a global how-to. Perhaps you could do a very basic compiler webinar, baby step by baby step. Thank you for today. You know what, Lucy? That's tough because I get it. It does feel like a lot. I guess I would encourage you to rewatch this again. I know it seems like a lot, but I promise you can do it. Step by step, a little bit by a time, you'll get there. And honestly, it also becomes more relevant when you have a manuscript you're working on and you want to get it out there. You'll be like, okay, now you actually have a concrete example to work from too. That really helps. And Barbara says, it is a confusing topic, but you did a good job with the tutorial. I'm glad there were issues during this demo to show us how to deal with the unexpected. You're welcome. Thank you to you, Barbara. I appreciate that. Yeah. You're going to run into issues. With anything you do, you're going to run into problems. And that's the whole point of this, right? None of us are perfect. We learn together. We run into problems. We fix the problems together. So John says, Scrivener tutorials are really some of the best, regardless of the app. Thank you. Beth says, I want to love the corkboard. I get you. Hopefully on Wednesday we'll help you do that. Marcia says, looking forward to the corkboard. Any plans of putting that test button on Windows? Matilda, that's a good question. I'll have to look into that. We do have a Windows developer working on a lot of things for the Windows version, so I'll have to see if we can find out about that. That is a good question. I'm going to write that down. Test button. Compile test. Test button for Windows. Yep, that's a good question. Thank you for asking that question. I'll see what I can find out. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, you guys couldn't see. Oh, thank you, John. I'm glad you're enjoying the new look and the new updates. Hopefully, this will help out. So, okay. Archama is saying, you've not answered the questions posted in the Q&A. So far, they've all been answered. Let's see here. Let's see. I learned the compiler. John says, when I learned the compiler, when I learned the compiler, I generated over 100 compiles to totally test the process. Wow, that's intense. Well, that's good. That means, you should be pretty familiar with the compiler then, John. That's excellent. That's good to hear. Let's see. Archama, I see you had a question. It looks like it was answered by Jim, but maybe I'll look at it and see if I can demonstrate it live. Okay, so how do we compile? So there are headers and page numbers on the top of the page, a requirement for contest compilation. So yeah, let's go ahead and look at that. Let's see. Let me make sure you're actually seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and look at that real quick for your Archama. If I wanted to make sure I had the required headers, right, for whatever I'm working on, we're gonna go ahead and compile. We're gonna edit this format here. Let me show that again so you can see that clearly. We're going to select the format we're working on. I could actually create a whole new one. I'm going to edit the existing one I have, okay? The Manuscript Times Oliver's Edition. We're going to edit that format. Excuse me. And then we're going to go to, let's see here if I can find it. I believe it is Page Settings, Header and Footer Text. And there's the main body here. This is how we will adjust this, okay? And what do we need to have in there, Archama? We needed to have... Okay, you can adjust it. Yeah, in the custom. So Jen had it right. We can adjust the compile for in the custom compile format settings under page settings option. And she wanted to have there's page numbers on the top of the page. So the page numbers are right here. This is what this little short code here means. Okay, if you're looking, it's called a placeholder. If you're looking for a list of placeholders, you can find them here. Okay. And we can come here and I can actually remove, I could have my surname there. I could have the abbreviated title there. If I don't need all this, anything I don't need, I can actually come in here and I can delete it, okay? So let's say I just want the page number and that's it. That's how I would do that. And I could actually put the page number in the header here. This means it's in the header top right. I could put it in the header top left, header in the middle. I could put it in the footer, top, bottom left, bottom right, wherever I want it to be. In fact, just to give you an idea, we'll put it in both places and we'll test it out and see what it looks like. Boom, good, that's gone. We'll just call it Liam's Charity again. Okay, let's just go with it. Export. And that should pull that up for us right here. Let's see, okay, yeah. There's page 1, right? You can see that it removed the name of the title and my surname there. Okay, and it even has it at the bottom. Now, we wouldn't want them both places, but you can see there they are, in fact, both places. And if I wanted to, I could adjust that again. Say, okay, I did what I wanted. I didn't want it here, though. I actually want it in the footer in the middle. Okay. Oops. Yeah. Let's go back, edit format. And let's go, oops, footer in the middle. Oh, that's for first pages. Okay. We were on the main body, right? We'll test that. And then we'll go ahead and click export. There we go. There's Liam Charity. If we scroll down now in the middle, there it is. Page 1, page 2, etc. Okay, all the way down here. And so there are other placeholders we can use. You can see here. You might want to familiarize yourself with some of these things. Okay, this is kind of advanced stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, this is kind of advanced stuff. Okay. The idea behind a placeholder is that you can stick something there where, you see here, I want the page number in there, but I can't just put 1, 2, 3, 4. I just want Scrivener to know, hey, every time you encounter this little code right here, it'll put in the page number there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If we go down here, you can see there it is right there. Page numbers, when used in the header or footer, it gets replaced with the current page number. And so there you go. And you can read all about that and all the different wonderful, cool things we have in here. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question there. Rachama, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, but hopefully That got it for you. You got you pointed in the right direction here. Let me see. I'm going to look through any of these other ones and see if there's anything else we could do. Good. Looks like that there are some questions about. I'm gonna have to copy some of these questions. Yeah, these are good because there's some really good questions here. I'm gonna take some screenshots and save these guys so I can hopefully also help you guys out with this down the road with some webinars and stuff. Okay, looking good. Okay, excellent. Where did you get the placeholder help from? Once again, if you want to see that list of placeholder, all placeholders right here. Okay, help placeholders. Okay, excellent. Well, we are officially out of time. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. This was a phenomenal event. I'm glad you guys felt better off with the compiler by the end of it. That really makes me happy. That's my goal, to make sure that this is really clear, consistent, and easy to understand, and will get you pointed in the right direction. Now, as a reminder, the webinar has been recorded, right? And that will be available in the webinar library shortly. So keep an eye for that. We've been waiting till the end of the week to get those out. Hopefully we can get those out a bit sooner for you, but just bear in mind it may be into next week before we get these all posted. So thank you so much, Justin. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Kitty. You all are phenomenal writers and phenomenal people. I appreciate having you here with me today, and I will catch you all on Wednesday for our next webinar on the corkboard. And if you haven't already, share it with people. Let them know. We want to get as many people out here as we can. Let them know how to use this great and amazing tool. Thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you all next time.